Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the West Covina Planning Commission for Tuesday, October 10, 2018. It's about 7 o'clock. We are actually waiting for the chair who's running a little late, but we're going to go ahead and start it off and he can jump in when he gets here. So right now we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll follow that with a moment of silent prayer meditation. The pledge tonight will be led by Commissioner Dario Castellanos. If you'd please rise. Thank you.
Please face the flag and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, Mr. Anderson, may we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Holtz?
Here.
Commissioner Redholz?
Here.
Commissioner Hing?
Here.
Commissioner Castellanos?
Here.
Chairman Jimenez.
We expect him momentarily, hopefully. Next item is approval of minutes from our regular meeting of September 11, 2018. Any commissioners have any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will be approved as presented. Oh, I got to get the cards. All right, item 3. At this time on the agenda is oral communications. This is the time when any member of the public may speak to the Commission on any matter within the scope of duties assigned to the Commission relating to non-agendized or consent calendar items. Other matters included on this agenda may be addressed when that item is under consideration. For oral communications, the chairperson may impose reasonable limitations on public comments to assure an orderly and timely meeting. The Ralph-M-Brown Act limits the Planning Commission and staff's ability to respond to public comments at this meeting. Thus, your comments may be agendized for a future meeting or referred to staff. The Commission may ask questions for clarification if desired at this time. I have one card that doesn't indicate an item. Marquez Van Liedra, are you speaking on an item? Sorry, Marcel. Ooh, close. Not even close. I guess you're speaking on 3, the ADUs? Okay. So I don't have any cards for oral communication. Does anyone wish to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will close oral communication and move on to item number 2, which is public hearings. We have one public hearing scheduled tonight. This is an administrative use permit number 18-22. Categorical exemption. The applicant is Dharini Rajesh Patel at 1818 East Roland Avenue. It is known as Royal Crest Liquor. Mr. Anderson, who will be presenting the staff report?
Our Associate Planner, Veronica Hernandez, will be presenting that report.
What did I say, liquor? Ooh, dairy. Sorry, folks. Did I say liquor? Ooh, wrong.
Dairy. Right. Okay. The applicant is requesting the approval of an administrative use permit to intensify an existing Type 20 beer and wine alcohol license to a Type 21 to allow for the off-sale of distilled spirits within an existing drive-through dairy mart. After mailing notices to surrounding properties, the planning director may approve this type of request. However, the planning director decided to forward this request to the Planning Commission for transparency and in an effort to reduce review time. The existing drive-through dairy store is located within a small commercial center at the intersection of Roland and Azusa Avenues. The drive-through dairy was established in 1963 and occupies a 13,300 square foot lot located at the most northeasterly corner of the commercial center. The subject property is a full-service convenience store and accommodates drive-through customers. Limited parking is also available on site. Surrounding zoning and property uses are included in your staff report. There is an existing Type 20 off-sale beer and wine ABC license for this business that has been in effect since 1990. The applicant is applying to upgrade the license to a Type 21 license so that the store can act as a one-stop shop. The applicant indicated that the operation of the Mini Mart specializes in providing their customers with the ability to get everything they need at one place. Display shelves and coolers are located on each side of the drive-thru. The applicant indicated only the owners and employees have access to the walk-in coolers. Therefore, customers who request alcoholic beverages must request an item and wait for the employee to retrieve it. The current and proposed hours of operation for the drive-thru dairy are 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. Consumption of alcohol is not permitted on the premises with a Type 21 liquor license. A census tract which exceeds the ratio of licenses to population in the country is considered an area of undue concentration of licenses. This property is located in an area of undue concentration of off-sale alcoholic beverage licenses as determined by ABC, the Alcohol and Beverage Control. 3 liquor licenses are permitted within the subject census tract, while 11 licenses currently exist. However, because this business already holds a valid off-sale ABC license, the approval of this request would not increase the amount of ABC licenses in the area. The number of ABC licenses would remain the same at 11. Your staff report also contains discussion of the concentration of crime in the area. The area is defined as a high crime area. However, it is common for commercial reporting districts in the city to be defined as high crime areas. The required findings have been made and are included in your staff report. Staff supports the request because it is anticipated that the change of the ABC license will not increase or contribute to the crime rate in the reporting district. Staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving AUP number 18-22. That concludes my presentation, and I believe the applicant is here if there are any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Any question from the Commission? Commissioner Reynolds, please.
Thank you. I have a question. Veronica, did you go out there? Have you been out there?
Yeah, yes, I went out there today.
Okay. And did you see the banners and?
I did notice that. Commissioner Redholz had noticed that there are several banners and signs that do not comply with our permitted signs advertising the items that the dairy sells. So we could, if we are concerned about that, add a condition of approval or in the resolution, just stating that the signs need to comply before we sign off on the ABC license.
Okay. And they've had a ABC license there, the Type 20, for a long time.
Correct.
Several years, I believe. Is staff aware of any history of any violations or sales, underage sales or anything like that at that location with that licensee?
Not that I'm aware of. The applicant is here too, who could speak to that, but I don't believe there have been any incidents.
Okay. And with their current license, are there any restrictions such as what we are considering with the gas station restrictions? Are there any restrictions like that as far as single sales, or can somebody just walk in and buy a can or a bottle? Do we know? Or would the applicant be better?
No, there are no restrictions like that. I don't believe ABC ever has restrictions like that. Some cities do decide to put those. We don't have anything like that in our code.
Okay.
And I don't believe that would. This is probably do we know if this has a CUP now?
I don't believe it does.
Yeah, I think this probably predates the time when we required a CUP. So it's probably what we call a legal non-conforming situation. Okay. So there aren't any conditions on it right now, probably.
Okay. That is something, maybe not in this case, but that is something that could be considered with a future application.
It could be considered. Yeah, I know. I don't think West Covina has ever utilized that, but I have heard of other cities putting that requirement on certain uses. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
No additional questions from the Commission? No. Okay. Maybe we can invite the applicant to come and speak a little bit about this project. Would you care to step forward?
The applicant, Mr. Mrs. Patel is in present, is in attendance. Mr. Patel couldn't make it, he's out ill, but I think the staff report basically gives you a very specific overview as to the location, the history of the location. I think Commissioner Redholz had mentioned that the location has been licensed, as mentioned in the staff report, since 90 with a type 20. So it's going on its almost 30th year of having the ABC license with no history of any disciplinary action for the various owners that has gone through this particular location. Mrs. Patel has had the ownership since 2013, so for the past 5 years, with no issues with any law enforcement. Matter of fact, they've had multiple minor decoy sting operations been done at the location, and they've passed and they've received letters to state that, hey, you know what, you did really well, and just keep up the good work. So, matter of fact, they've received two from ABC and one from West Covina PD. So they have, I feel like they've illustrated that they've been a good operator. They definitely know and abide by all the ABC laws as well as all the municipal laws to make sure that they are they're being a good neighbor, good citizen of the community, and the natural progression of the business has come to a point where it was an opportunity for them to see if this was going to be a viable option, and having gone through all the necessary outreach with the adjacent neighbors and just all the patrons that they do have on a regular basis, they have sought their ideas to see if would that be something that would be ideal, fit for the operation. And many of them have said, yeah, you know what, we would love to have you be able to offer that amenity. And we have no intention of making this into a liquor store. We are going to maintain the dairy concept, be the main, and it's going to be just a small amenity that's going to be offered to the patrons that are patronizing the store. And I do want to also highlight the fact that Ms. Patel's had another location within the city of Arcadia, and she's had that license that dates back to 2004 until May of 2018, this year, and there's no disciplinary history. There's never been any issues with that operation as well. To kind of give you an overview, give you some insight as to the type of operator she is and the type of operation that she has run in the past and that she will continue to run within the city of West Covina. So, as mentioned, I mean, this is going to be for off-site purposes, which means there will be no alcohol consumed on-site. And we feel that this will be something that we look forward to being able to service our patrons and just being able to offer an additional amenity. I am, like I said, joined by Mrs. Patel, and we also have some speakers I know that are here that could attest to the operator and how they've been a good neighbor for the past 5 years since they've had the ownership and operation of the market. Any other questions I may answer?
Sure.
Yeah, you mentioned the Arcadia location. Was that a similar operation to
yes,
this?
Yes, sir.
A
Matter of fact, that was also a dairy type. It was called Sherry's Dairy.
Okay, and they had a type 21 there, or 20 only?
Type 20.
Only 20?
Yes, sir.
So this is the first time going after the 21 that
Correct.
you're aware of? Okay.
If you were to look at it from a standpoint of the 20 versus 21, this
Right.
will be the first time they will have a 21. But I think that, you know, since 04, they have had an ABC license with not one disciplinary history of anything, and not having any issues with any of the local law enforcements.
Okay, now, I don't know whether you or Mrs. Patel, but I'd kind of like to walk through the process. If, you know, like right now, she sells beer and wine,
Yes, sir.
but mostly beer.
Yes, sir.
When somebody pulls in, they're in their car, how does that work?
I can have her come up and just kind of walk you through that.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to know what the
Sure.
procedure is.
Did you want to come up, Mrs. Patel?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
They have to step out for alcohol and walk to the register, and then I sell the beer.
Okay, so they physically have to get out of the car
Right.
and walk over to the register,
Yeah,
and then you would ID them if necessary, or all the time, or
All the time.
all the time? Okay, so they don't just sit in the car and say, give me a six-pack and drive off, right? They have to get out of the car.
California law prohibits that practice, so if you are in a moving motor vehicle, you will need to physically exit the vehicle to be able to purchase alcohol and make sure that you know that they're stable and sober and all that. Cognitive measures are, so that's something that state mandates, so they adhere to that to the T.
Okay, and in the 5 years that you've been there,
Yeah.
have you ever had occasion where someone would buy say, a six-pack of beer and pull off to a parking space, crack it open and drink it there on the, near your premises? Just curious. No?
No.
They take it and they drive it home, usually. Yeah? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, they don't pop it open there and drive down the, pull into the parking space and drink it.
I guess what she's trying to say, she's never physically observed it herself, but we are under the impression that that's what's happening. They do know that this is for off-site consumption. It's not for on-site, so obviously when they drive off, we figure that that's what they're doing. They're taking the alcohol
it
to
with
a place of where they see themselves consuming it, either their home or wherever they're.
Right. Okay. No, I'm just trying to get a picture. I think that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Commissioner Castellanos?
If you were to get approval for the type 21, how many offerings would you consider? I mean, is it like high end or everything? 10 items, 30 items? Have you thought about that?
I don't know about that. I have to check, I don't know about for anything. So
Not really sure yet. If it would be more like
first, customer, what they like, and then we carry. So I don't know
so
necessarily
low end or
how
high
many
end.
item I'm going to carry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? No. Maybe if you can just help me to answer just a couple questions. What is the thought process that prompted you to apply for a liquor license for distilled spirits? So you have beer and wine right now as an amenity, and now you want to add distilled spirits, basically, or hard liquor as part of the proposal. What prompted that thought process, absent of an amenity to the immediate area?
So, like I said, they've been there for 5 years, and over the 5 years that they've been able to find out that the patrons that they have many patrons that come on a regular basis. So when they do come to the market, they would like to be able to have a one-stop type of opportunity. So over the years, they've said, hey, you know what, it would be great if we could go ahead and have an opportunity to buy distilled spirits here. But at the time, 2-3 years into it, they felt like it was still too early. But then now 5 years in and having multiple patrons, having many other residents that live close proximity say, hey, you know what, we're in support of it, we would like for you to consider doing it. So this was an opportunity where they say, you know what, we should seek to see what course of action we will need to take. So they had consulted the planning department and found out that they would have to go through an AEP process, and that's when they contacted our firm to see if we could assist them with the application and all the way to the clearance. And so when we started the process, we were thinking that this was going to be a good fit. Having met with these couple of the residents and having met with the operator and just having the long history and just the reasoning behind, like I said earlier in my presentation, it's a natural progression of the business. The fact that the location itself had almost 30 years of beer and wine only, but now 5 years in onto their ownership, but in overall 28 years of being licensed, and we're not going to be adding another license to the census tract. We are just merely upgrading from the existing license status. We thought it was going to be a good addition to the business. I hope that answers your question.
I believe you retain still your liquor license. You just have to add an additional liquor license
So
for
what
the
happens
full
is the
distilled spirit, right?
ABC will go ahead and cancel the existing 20 and replace that with a 21.
Let me ask this question a little bit different than Commissioner Castellanos. How much of the floor area will you devote to the display of distilled spirits?
So,
how would that look?
The current location being that is somewhat limited in size, we will only have a very limited space of display in the rear. That's going to be situated behind Mr. and Mrs. Patel, so it's not going to be within reach of any of the patrons, obviously, and it will be very limited. So she's looking into, once this gets approved, making an actual display case that has a lock on it as well, and basically, so they'll be only accessible by the Mr. and Mrs. Patel, and so it will be with the glass like a regular display, like an alcohol cabinet, but it's going to be limited to that. Now, at the present time, we don't know exactly the size. Is it going to be 10 by 20? But at the present time, we don't envision that being a major thrust of the business. Once again, this is just an ancillary use to the existing market and the existing beer and wine, just adding on to that as an additional amenity.
Did any, during your outreach efforts, did anyone suggest or recommend maybe certain types of liquors that they would like to see here that will be a true amenity to them?
We haven't, once again, gotten to a point where we're looking into an actual label or a particular brand, but like I said, when you have distilled spirit, you are able to carry such as vodka to tequila, so we are looking into seeing what will be the demand that our patrons are requesting, and exactly what will be the ideal fit, because we do have limited space. So, like, to answer Commissioner Castellanos, we will not be able to physically be able to carry all types of alcohol because we're limited in size. So we anticipate that we're going to go ahead and kind of figure out exactly what will be at the request of the patrons, and then just kind of look into carrying those.
Thank you for answering our questions.
My pleasure, sir.
Okay, there's one follow-up.
Do you, yeah,
Yes, sir.
who does the buying of the product? Is that your husband?
Mr. and Mrs. Patel.
Both together? Okay,
Mostly Mrs. Patel.
okay. So, I mean, if the, you know, say it's granted, someone's got to put an order together, you know, to.
So, yeah, the ordering will be done by the licensee, who is Mrs. Patel. So, yeah, she'll be the one to place orders with the distributors and the, you know, obviously
Right,
the order.
right.
And then they'll be the one responsible for the storage and the displaying, and obviously the sale.
Then you evaluate sales and go from
Yes,
there
sir.
and see what you want to get rid of and add on and
Yes,
that
sir.
kind of thing. All right, thank you.
No similar amenity like this one exists in the immediate area?
Not that I know of, that is a dairy with a drive-through convenience, no, sir.
So absent of the dairy, though, it does exist in the area.
I'm sorry?
Absent of the dairy drive-through component, the amenity of full liquor exists in the immediate area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. If there are no questions, we're going to invite a few people to speak with us that filled out a few cards, and we may ask you to come back for a little bit of
Thank you, sir.
redirect if that's
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. First card I have here is for, it's Monica Ramirez. Name and address for the record, please.
Monica Ramirez, address is 1004 West Covina Parkway, West Covina.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Is there anything you would care to share with us? You filled out a card, right, wishing to speak on this item?
I just basically that I have frequented the store for about approximately 5 years, on and off. Next door to the store is my friend lives there, so I visit there quite often. So I've been to the store. I know Ms. Patel just by frequenting the store and making different purchases, and I just wanted to speak in her, you know, in the behalf of the store and herself, that they've always been very, you know, professional as far as, you know, the sales, any type of sales, because I've experienced even actually at one point buying a beer or buying something that's, you know, spirits, and she's always made sure that we got out of the car, we paid at the register, that she ID'd. So I feel comfortable in speaking for her because I've actually seen it, and it's been done to me personally. So.
Okay, Ms. Ramirez, is that it?
Yes.
Thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
We have actually, Ms. Ramirez,
Yes.
we have one question.
Just a question. Have you been in the liquor store that's around the corner there? Well, walking distance?
The one that's, yes, I have.
In the shopping center? Do they not have what you need, or walk me through your view of the need for this versus that liquor store?
I think that maybe the selection, I don't think they have that many. They do have some, but I don't think that it's, what word can I say? They're limited to what they have available, let's put it that way. So, okay.
Question?
Oh, one more question. Sorry about that, Ms. Ramirez. I apologize. You're going to get your workout today.
That's good. I need it.
Yeah, the address that you gave is West Covina Parkway, which is quite a distance from this location.
Correct.
What is your relationship with the Patels?
I just know them because I used to live next door, actually, where I visit now. I frequent there now.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you're safe now. Ana Reynoso?
Hi, I'm Ana Reynoso. I live at 443 North La Brida Avenue, West Covina. There's actually a brick wall that divides my area from the dairy. So I literally live on the other, right next to them. I haven't had any problems with them. I've been frequently in that dairy for about as long as they've been around. I have also witnessed them making their customers get out of the car whenever they're purchasing any kind of liquor. I haven't not witnessed anybody around there drinking liquor, and I haven't had any problems with anybody who's been around that dairy. They're always very polite, very good to the customers. They're very well liked in the community. I do go to their dairy probably about 3 or 4 times a week, as they're right next to it. And they usually have what I'm looking for, but when it comes to something a little more stronger in liquor, they don't have it and I have to go somewhere else. So that would be great if they were a one-stop shop.
Okay. Any questions from the commission on this one? Yeah. Okay, Ms. Reynoso, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
George Diaz.
Good evening. My name is Jorge Diaz, or like you said, George in City English. I live at 315 North Tolan Avenue, West Covina, California, 91790. I've been there for 30 years. And I've seen this place grow, everything change. That dairy's been there forever. I went to Roland Elementary, Treywick, graduated from Covina. So it's been around forever. And for me, it's more like a family kind of vibe. I can go to Stater Brothers, I can go to Costco, I can get it cheaper. But for my convenience sometimes, it's near to me. It's drive-through. Yes, you have to get out, which is the law. You know what I mean? But I buy cigarettes there every once in a while. Spirits like beer. Don't drink much alcohol. But if I wanted to have a family gathering, I'd rather put my money into a family place like that where the people are nice and you can speak to them, than just going to some corporate thing. That's about it.
Okay. Any questions? No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you.
That represents all the speaker cards I have in favor for the application. If anyone is still interested in speaking that has not filled out a card, this would be a good time to do that. We have a couple cards in opposition. First is Angie.
Hello, everyone. Although I don't live near there, I live on the east side of the city, I am concerned about the deterioration of our city. You recently had the Chevron gas station on Workman and Citrus applying for selling liquor. And I think that's possibly what may have opened the door to this particular business, a dairy. I guess I'm old enough that I thought a dairy would sell eggs, milk, those kind of things. That's what I grew up knowing a dairy to be, to provide those kind of services. Ms. Patel may be a nice, wonderful person. She might have also applied for this in Arcadia and been declined. We shouldn't be the city that allows her to have that license to be able to have distilled liquor. My point to all this is a small business. Is she thinking about getting out of the eggs and getting out of the milk and completely getting into the liquor? There are businesses within 50 or 100 feet of this business that she would be competing with. If she doesn't want to compete with them, then why isn't she sticking with what we believe, what is a dairy by nature, what we all believe a dairy should sell? I just think if that's the business she wants to go into, she should find a location and go into selling liquor. I just very opposed any place that provides a drive-through to even sell any more than what she's already selling as far as alcohol. So I support the neighbors, some of them who could not be here, who asked me to support them. So I oppose this very much so, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Angie.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say something? The monitor for the TV technicians, the speakers at the podium, all we're seeing is their profile. they're not, it's not, maybe they're fine with that, but, we're looking at the people that, the vast audience watching at home or on YouTube are just seeing a profile, and it just looks odd.
Yeah, there's a camera that's out.
Oh, there's a camera that's out?
So we're improvising.
So I'm not crazy, I'm seeing that.
No, you are.
So just maybe if, just to add it to the record, it appears that for those at home, we have an issue with one of the cameras, I believe, that provides a different angle. So we're trying to do the best with the available technology. So we'll just continue on here, but thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Reynolds. You have a future in the AV, right? Kim Sutcliffe.
Kim Sutcliffe, I live at 413 North La Breda. Been there about 20 years, use the dairy off and on, not as often as we used to. I'm not in favor of it. 50 feet is a liquor store, another block is a liquor store, Stater Brothers. The drive-through part is not attractive to me. I don't think it sends a good message. My feeling is keep the ordinance as it is and keep us out of that particular business. The other liquor stores can expand. They have a larger selection. If it does grow that the dairy ends up having more liquor than dairy products, then we're just, a step away from just truly driving through and drinking. So I'm really not in favor of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, I have no additional speaker cards on this item. Once again, if anyone's interested in speaking who has not spoken, okay.
Good evening, how are you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm actually one of the owners at the Quick Stop Liquor and Market, which is less than 50 feet away from the Royal Crest Dairy. 4 months ago when we first took over, the shopping center was literally a homeless shelter.
Before continuing, your name and address for the record, please.
Jamal Jabbar, 430 North Azusa Avenue.
Thank you.
Within the 4 months that we've taken over liquor store over there, we contacted the West Covina Police Department non-emergency number many times. We got a hold of the HOPE program that works with the homeless to help and support them. We even reported the shopping center a few times under the homeless encampments on westcovina.org. And and anyone loitering in the area is not allowed to purchase alcohol at our location. Because with a liquor store business comes many responsibilities. In regards to the representative of Ms. Patel's regarding no disciplinary action taken by the dairy, by law enforcement, which he referred to, I, on 2 separate occasions, noticed law enforcement at the dairy's premises. Many of the customers that are hanging out in the shopping center are not allowed to purchase beer from our location. And but they are still drinking beer on the premises, getting it basically from the dairy's location. And just to keep in mind that there are 11 locations in the area with the ABC license, which only 3 were initially allowed to, and that they are less than 500 feet away from Taraweek Intermediate School, located at 1941 East Roland Avenue. And other than that, in the past 4 months that we took all of our efforts into the HOPE program and contacting law enforcement, what efforts has the dairy made towards the homeless problem in the area in regards to loitering and drinking on the property in the past 5 years that she has been there? And that'll be it. Thank you.
So if you don't mind, of the 11 liquor licenses in the area, one of those 11 is one.
Yes.
The one that you have or possess, and
Yes.
you have a full liquor.
Yes, full liquor, and all of those, well, mostly all of the ones that I looked into have been there and existed for more than 40 years on each of those locations.
Okay.
So in no way or means should a new one exist after that, a new one that shouldn't be there in the beginning.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Do me a favor before you sit down, just fill out a card, that way we can add it to the record.
I gave it to him.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss you here? I saw item number 4. Oh, sorry, it said item number 4. My apologies, Jamal.
No problem.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, that represents all the speaker cards I have on this item. Would the applicant care to come up and rebut a little bit based on some of the testimony heard this evening?
Thank you. I think that we've heard some valid concerns, and we too also feel that we want to be able to bring an amenity that's going to be serving the public convenience and necessity to the residents and to the community at large. We have no envision of making this into a liquor store where we're going to go ahead and basically convert the whole operation into a liquor store. And like I said to you earlier, we envision having a little display to the rear of the cashier area. I don't know exactly how much that's going to store and how much that's going to be able to offer as far as the amenity, but it's no way we're going to be able to, we're not going to be able to do what some of the patrons, some of the speakers have mentioned, converting it to a liquor store, no. And as far as the other gentleman that had mentioned about the 4 months that he's been there, yes, we've had ongoing issues, and we've been working closely with PD. And the 2 times that he's mentioning, it was one time where Mr. Patel had an incident with one of the homeless people and where he was attacked. So that's the reason why he had called to get their assistance. Not because they were having any issues, because they were illegally engaged in anything that would be warranted for them to be there. It was for Mr. Patel to be able to say, you know, we need to have some protection, because he's been trying to work with those homeless people when they have set up a little encampment to get them off, try to get them assistance, trying to get them to, you know, say, hey, look, this is not where you need to be hanging out. So we've done our part in making sure that we do keep the adjacent areas clean. As you know, there's a little open area right on the street. They keep that area very clean, free of debris. So we've actively been engaged in making sure that the immediate area is clean, making sure that all the immediate areas are conducive to a viable community. I think there was, yeah, I mean, once again, we're not looking into converting this to a liquor store. So I think that's something that we really need to be crystal clear on, and the fact that we've been there and having had a liquor license for almost 30 years. And like I said to you earlier, it's a natural progression of the business. And just because it's called dairy doesn't mean that you're limited to what the offerings that you could offer at the business. I don't think that's right. Just because you're labeled as a dairy and that's part of your business name doesn't limit you to just being that, so.
Sure, Commissioner Redholt.
If I can, do you know what percentage of sales the beer is currently? If you were to, you know, and I'm not counting chips and everything else, but as far as, you know, just beverages in general, I mean, what percentage is beer? Do you know?
So you're asking how much of
just what the percentage, yeah,
sales would be yielding to the beer?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
Don't know? I'm just wondering, just curious if it's a big percentage or a small percentage, or, I mean, you don't have to rack your brain, but, you know, there's something you just had at the top of your head.
Unfortunately, I'm not their accountant. I just represent them for the AUP, so I couldn't attest to that.
That's all right. That's all right.
My apologies.
No problem.
How do you define this as a unique amenity that can't be achieved or satisfied by one of the neighboring uses?
Well, I think you had asked that question earlier, and I tried to do my best in trying to answering that. So once again, this is very unique in the fact that we do have the convenience of having, like Mr. Diaz had mentioned, a drive-through, and we've been there for multiple decades. So people do recognize that convenience, and they do like that. So they've been coming for multiple decades, for the past 5 years since Mr. and Mrs. Patel has taken ownership. And like I said, they do feel like this is something that they would like to explore as a business owner and be able to appease the patrons that have come to them and requesting and just multiple times is asking them, would that be something that you guys would consider? It's just an amenity, so we could go ahead and get all our things done here, and that sounded like a broken record, just be a one-stop shop.
Okay.
So once again, we think that this offering can be attained by walking 50 feet, I think that's what he stated. I think it's a little further, but by going to the liquor store. But at the same time, when you're in your vehicle and you're at the dairy and you want to patronize at this store, then you have the offerings that you are seeking that that we can offer, and that's one of the main reasons why we're seeking to upgrade.
Thank you for answering our questions.
My pleasure,
I
sir.
believe that
Thank you.
represents all the questions we have as a commission. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. That represents all the public testimony we have on this item. I'm going to close that portion of the hearing and maybe ask Jeff if he wants to add a couple things, or Commissioner Reynolds, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Stan. You know, you talk about in the report that there are 3 liquor licenses that are permitted, and there are 11 there. How does that happen? I mean, why do we have 3 permitted and we have 8 more than are permitted? And that's an ABC question, I guess.
Yes, it's an ABC question. I think I can answer it kind of peripherally, but I can't answer it directly because it wasn't a city decision to set some arbitrary threshold at 3. It was a state decision, and I really don't fully understand it, except for that it seems like, from my understanding, it grows out of the 1991 the rebellion, the riots that happened at that time. And those of us who are old enough to remember that can remember aerial pictures of people running from one corner of a liquor store across the street to another corner of a liquor store. And there was this uproar with too many liquor stores. And so ABC's response to that was to say, well, let's have the cities decide if there's too many liquor stores, which the cities were already deciding to begin with. They just added this other level of review that, in my experience, the only liquor stores that we've had proposed that aren't in an area of undue concentration are in neighborhoods, which seems like the reverse of what you would want. I don't look at it as a very valid test, but it's not necessarily up to me. We're providing you that information because it's part of the state requirement of ABC, and they've set these thresholds. So probably the answer to that is that when they set that threshold, there were already 9, 10, 11 liquor licenses in that census tract.
They date back decades.
Yes, they date back decades, and this probably dates back maybe 25 years. This law only dates back 25 years.
And if I may continue, if this gets approved tonight, is the next step to go to ABC, or have they already been to ABC?
Well, I think they would have applied to ABC. They can answer that better than we can, because we're not. I think they usually go to ABC first to find out what they need to do and if they can do it. And then they have to get a license through them, and then they come and apply to us, but they don't get final approval of ABC till they get final approval from us.
Okay, and one last question. We currently just have one other dairy convenience store in this city. Is that correct? The one on Vine?
As far as I know of. I was kind of racking my brain on that earlier this week, and I can only think of 2 of them in town, yeah.
Okay, there used to be one on San Bernardino Road, but that's been gone for...
That's the one that someone mentioned to me, and it's not.
That's been gone for a long time.
Yes,
now,
I think it's been gone for 20 years.
There's just 2, and I believe they also sell beer.
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
I think they do. A third dairy?
There might be one on Belinda.
In West Covina or county?
It might be.
I think that's county. Okay, thank you.
I believe sometimes the liquor licenses also are tied back to census tracts. I think it's a function of the census tract. I recall in Old Town Pasadena, for example, they're only allowed to have like 8 to 9 licenses, but they have over 100 liquor licenses in the Old Town area.
Yeah.
So I don't recall the metrics, I don't know the numbers, but a lot of it is tied back.
It is tied to the census. I believe you're correct there. It's tied to the census tract and the population in that census tract. So in some ways, it's not a very good measurement, because the census tract, in this case, the census tract is area on the east side of Azusa. So it doesn't include the stores on the west side of Azusa. I don't think Stater Brothers is included in this census tract of that data. So it's not about a radius, it's about a census tract, an arbitrary map that as I said, it's not a very good, it's kind of a general test, but it's not a very good specific test.
I believe we had this discussion with the liquor license request at the northwest corner of, I think that was, is it Puente, I believe, and Azusa. And we talked about the census tract boundary being the center line point of Azusa. So, okay. All right, well, thank you for that, Jeff. Commissioners, discussion. Commissioner Holtz?
I'm just going by what the staff report says, and as we said, ABC standards set the standards, and I do believe what you were talking about, this was prior that a lot of these licenses were given out at that time, and since they had some problems down in the LA area type of thing. They said, okay, here's a standard to start looking at going into the future. It's not an ultimate thing. And I've used that dairy many times, and they're very nice people. I have nothing against the people. But still, in the census tract, ABC said there's an undue concentration. There's 3 permitted, there's 11 now, 11. And even though if we would agree to this liquor license, it would create another person, but they'd be one of the 11. But that's still a lot of licenses in that census tract. In addition, we went to the PD to ask for what the reported crimes were in that particular district, which is District 30. There were 34 crimes reported as Part 1 crimes, and the city as a whole is only 18. So that's twice as many crimes committed in that area. I'm not saying they're committed right there in that shopping center, but they are in that particular area. And then in addition, I think the thing that throws me over to my decision is there's a full-blown liquor store that's not even 50 feet away. Now, you do have to get out of your car at the dairy, and I know when I go to buy liquor, when I go into a liquor store, I like to see the display as to what's up there. So I don't know how you're going to come out of the car and stand by the cash register and be able to see the full inventory of what liquor is available. I just don't see how that's going to work. So seeing all those 3 things, and the main thing is there's a liquor store, 2 doors down. You've got to get out of your car anyway at the dairy, so what's the difference? I'd rather go into the liquor store. So I don't see that it's a need, and I think it's just going to, again, cause additional problems if we allow them to do this. So for my seat, I'm not in favor of the additional license 21.
Thank you, Commissioner Holtz. Anyone else? Commissioner Castellanos?
Thank you, Commissioner Jimenez. Well, Commissioner Holtz took the words right out of my mouth. Basically, with those 3 factors, I agree with the crime stats, with the homeless issue, and the homeless attack that was mentioned, and also with the liquor store there already. I mean, I think there's more trouble that comes with, hard liquor that you could hide fairly easily and drink pretty fast for a powerful effect. If we didn't have the homeless issue and there wasn't already a liquor store there, maybe it would be different, but I don't see how this is really a community need right there. So for those reasons, I'm not in favor. But like I said, if different circumstances, maybe. But here, I think the probability or potential for an altercation or just more, places for police to have trouble, I think that's a red flag. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, this is, it's kind of a tough situation. To me, there is no real need. There is no real necessity. I mean, there's a lot of distilled spirits available all over the place there. When Mr. Wu was asked what makes this unique by the chair, I think what makes it unique is not the product, but the delivery system, which is the drive-through. That's what makes it unique. And I don't know that makes it better. I think it might be adding to the problem, because that's the only thing that makes it unique is that. I understand. I went out there yesterday. It's a nice, it is what it is. It's a drive-through dairy. It's been there forever. Very nice people. It seems to be a pretty good business. I don't know how much of it is attributable to, to the beer sales, but, just looking at the inventory of beer, there's a lot of beer, so I would assume that they're probably selling a lot of beer, and I hope they are. I mean, that's, to me, that's fine. They're just lucky they don't have a gas pump out front, because they wouldn't even be able to do it at all. But I'm kind of not thinking it's necessary, unfortunately, at this point.
Fair enough. Okay. Commissioner Hing, do you care to add anything to this discussion? Okay. From my seat, I understand the importance about growing your business and trying to provide an amenity. And I think why I was trying to drill down on the unique factors, I think you answered the question, Commissioner Redholz. There is a unique situation, I think, in that the amenity that you would like to consider is already being provided within footsteps of your existing location. I think the strengths of your business is to cater a lot to the needs of the immediate area. That would include the schools, the kids, so forth. I'm not sure that the inclusion of distilled spirits would add an amenity, I think, that would benefit the general area. So my decision is really based on, one, the over-concentration, not necessarily in the census tract. I previously, on the record, said that this area already labors with undue concentration when you take into consideration the west side of Azusa. So for me, that's the concern that I have. The east side is already laboring under undue concentration, as is the west. So add those two together and you have a super area of undue concentration. And for me, the amenity here, I don't think far outweighs the benefit for that immediate area. So for that reason, I too will side on not approving the application this evening. But thank you. I hope we can find a way to work in some other alternative. But I hope there's a continued opportunity for your growth here in the city. But distilled spirits, we don't believe would be that amenity that would benefit the business long term. So with that said, that's where I was going. Someone care to make a motion?
Perhaps I would like to speak. Perhaps I would like to speak.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Okay.
Yes, okay, I've decided. Technically, you don't have a resolution of denial in front of you. You only have resolutions of approval. So the motion should be to direct staff to come back at the next meeting, which would be the 23rd, if I'm doing my math right, October 23rd, with a resolution of denial.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue the item, right, Jeff, or a motion
yes,
for denial
continue
on the 23rd?
and direct staff to prepare a denial.
And I will second that. Do you need a roll call, Jeff? Or?
I don't know if we need one, but if we can do one, if you'd like.
Okay, roll call it is.
Commissioner Holtz?
Aye.
Commissioner Redholz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hing?
Aye.
Commissioner Castellanos?
Aye.
Chairman Jimenez?
Aye.
So it will be on the next agenda for your action.
Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, the appeal time won't start until the following next meeting where there is an action taken, correct? Okay.
While you're getting set up there, Jeff, moving on to item number 3. This is a Code Amendment 1802. It's a general exemption and statutory exemption. The applicant is the City of West Covina. Properties are citywide. This is a proposed code amendment that consists of certain amendments to the zoning section of the West Covina Municipal Code to modify standards for accessory dwelling units. The proposed code amendment is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15061, B3, and 15282H. Staff presentation?
Yes, I'm going to cover that for you tonight. It is Code Amendment number 1802. It is about accessory dwelling unit revisions. The City Council initiated the Code Amendment on June 19th to consider accessory dwelling unit standards for minimum lot size and rear setback. Code Amendment number 1703, which was a previous Code Amendment we did for ADU revisions, was adopted on June 5th. That it included several modifications to the ADU standards. Two code amendments were completed recently to address the various bills that have been passed. As of today, I don't think there are. We thought there would be some bills this year that would pass, would require us to do another code amendment perhaps next year, but it doesn't appear that's going to be the case. So we may have a year off from ADUs, we'll see. The Planning Commission held study sessions on August 28th and September 11th. Got something on the screen, let me. All right, so Code Amendment 1703 revises the standard for minimum lot size, reducing it from a sliding scale of 12,000 to 46,000 square feet, depending on the location in the city, to 12,000 square feet throughout the city. So we provided you this chart last time. I just wanted to show it quickly. I wasn't planning on going into any depth on it, but to remind you that we did talk about that, and the Commission did give us direction. I will cover that in just a moment. Secondly, on rear setback, R1 zone requires a rear setback of 25 feet, except in Area District A1, where a 15-foot rear setback is required. The code allows for an encroachment into the rear yard of 40%, no greater than 15 feet in height and no closer than 5 feet from the rear property line. So structures such as single-family houses and additions and most accessory buildings like garages, workshops, and sheds can be constructed to comply with that standard. Historically, second units have required a 25-foot rear yard setback. In addition, accessory habitable quarters, which were formerly called guest houses, also required to comply with a 25-foot setback. The intent of this standard is to reduce the privacy impacts to neighboring properties that are adjacent to the rear yard, especially since these are habitable structures that people live in as opposed to storage or things that people are in intermittently. Most of the types of improvements allowed to encroach in the rear setback are non-habitable buildings, which generally do not have the same loss of privacy issues on an adjacent property. And then thirdly, we talked about clarifying location standards. The current standards combine the allowed location standards for attached and detached ADUs in the rear yard section of the code. So the rear yard and the location are kind of combined, so it is a little confusing. The location standards require that detached ADUs be located behind the back of the residence, while attached ADUs can be located anywhere in the structure. To clarify, staff is recommending separating the rear yard standards and the location standards into two separate sections, and we have drafted it that way. In addition, staff is recommending including language that the door to the ADU not be located on the front elevation unless there is no other alternative due to topography. So, at the Commission study session on September 11, 2018, the Commission did give direction to staff to prepare a resolution with the following: retain the current standard of 12,000 square foot minimum lot size, retain the existing standard of minimum rear setback of 25 feet, and modify the code language to clarify location standards of ADUs within a building and include some minor edits that, when the city attorney was assisting us, pointed out some things we needed to change, and just very minor. So in conclusion, if the Planning Commission approves this code amendment, it would be scheduled for a public hearing by the Planning Commission. I want to restate that. If the Planning Commission recommends approval, the Planning Commission cannot approve a code amendment. They can only recommend, only the council can approve a code amendment. So if there's a recommendation for approval tonight, it will be scheduled for a public hearing before the City Council. As the Chairman mentioned, the code amendment is exempt per the CEQA sections cited by him and on the board behind me. And staff is recommending the adoption of a resolution recommending approval of the code amendment to the City Council. We did receive some letters, and I think there were some that were attached to your staff report. There were some that were also a memo that was provided for you with your packets. And thirdly, there was one that was distributed to you tonight. And that would conclude my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from the Commission? No? Okay.
One quick question I get. So basically, we're just blessing what we've done in the past, right? I mean, what we've recommended is now in a code form to go to the public hearing and go forward.
Yes, I think so. There, just to keep in mind, there are three things, because there was two things that the council asked us to do, and there's a third thing that came up as we reviewed this, especially with our city attorney office. So yes, the first two items, you are just recommending the same thing that you recommended on the previous code amendment. But just for clarification, though, we did do some study and analysis that we didn't do before, and we did it this time. So it does allow City Council a little bit more information to be able to make their own independent decision if they decide to do such.
Thank you for that, Jeff. I do have a few speaker cards. I believe I have a few. just want to confirm with Marcel Van Leerd. Are you here? Are you here to speak on this item?
I think so.
Okay.
Totally on what you're doing here.
Enough. I just want to confirm. I don't see an item here.
Come on,
okay.
Come on.
Sure. Since I already inconvenienced you. Marcel?
Come on up.
Would you care to come up?
Why don't you let Matt?
No, I want to go first.
All right, folks, let's organize ourselves here. So who's going to be the representative for the group?
My name's Dale Duncan.
All right, Dale, I may ask you to fill out a card when you're done, just that way we can add you.
Filled one out.
Okay, Dale, well, take it away.
1032 South Shasta Street. I was born in Pomona. My wife was born in Hollywood. We were both raised in La Puente and chose to live in West Covina because of its suburban and reasonably open environment, location, and reputation. We chose the location of our home 38 years ago for a number of reasons that I won't get into tonight, but many of those would be changed negatively if the ADU requirements are changed. We happen to live next door to a home behind which an ADU was built in 2014, and which was a topic of, let's call them, energetic discussions before this commission and a lot of public comments. Although not completely satisfied with the results, my wife and I both understand that the dilemma that faced the commission and the city in addressing those issues at that time, and they worked hard to address as many issues as they could to resolve the problems for the residents. And also to work on ordinance to take care of those types of ADUs in the future. I'll start with my conclusion. The city has an ordinance that's functioned well for the last 4 years, and it appears from the discussions in past planning commission meetings that there have been and are in fact very few requests to build detached ADUs. As my dad used to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it seems to be working well. As Commissioner Holt stated at the last meeting on September 11th, the requested changes may benefit a few interested parties based on the annual applications or inquiries about ADUs, but probably affect many in a negative manner. Why do I feel this way? First, as stated many times, there would be a negative impact on parking, which is currently abysmal in many cases, in many areas. Commissioner Redholz made a comment that residents have chosen to use existing two-car garages for other purposes, forcing them to rely on driveways at times in streets. The result is poor appearance, congestion, and, my belief, decreased home values. We happen to live on a street where this is prevalent and oftentimes have vehicles parked in front of our home, preventing guests from parking there. Second, in a previous meeting, I heard a comment that the current ordinance disincentivizes residents from building an ADU, and residents instead subdivide interior portions of a home and or convert garage space into living quarters. Actually, I believe that financial and the avoidance of a permitting process are what really incentivizes residents to do this. It's less expensive to subdivide the interior of a home spaces, to convert a garage, bypass the city's permitting process, than to invest in and build an ADU. Also, financially, there's no reassessment for property tax purposes if they do it that way. Third, we don't believe that more population density as a result of ADUs will enhance homeowner values. Perhaps realtors may state this, but I suggest that formal studies may in fact challenge the notion. We, along with many residents, purchased homes in West Covina because of its suburban charm and openness. Adding units and people will negatively impact that appeal and will not, in fact, increase values. We chose to live here rather than in Los Angeles or other surrounding large cities because of the concept here and avoiding the density issues. Let's face it, millennials today enjoy portability. It's evidenced in Los Angeles. They got 1,500 apartments under construction right now, and they don't consider home ownership a vital concern as other generations did. I've got 2 millennial kids, and trust me, they like it urban and gritty. Brooklyn, LA, Highland Park, anywhere but West Covina. However, I do believe that there's a large number of people who still share our dream and enjoyment of a great city and a suburban and open atmosphere in West Covina. Fourth is a concern expressed by all commissioners as well as Commissioner Hang on an unrelated matter which deals with views. We're blessed with a reasonably good view of the San Gabriel Mountains and remarked last week while sitting on our patio how fortunate we are to be able to enjoy such a treasure in this area. Again, changing and relaxing the existing ordinance has the potential to take something away from us that we didn't believe could or would be taken away from us 38 years ago when we bought the home and sacrificed to make that purchase. Fifth, the impact on municipal services, including fire and safety, sewer system and utilities. We understand that the utilities are not controlled by the city and that the city's water supplier has assured it that it has adequate supplies to provide for the potential expansion. However, we're constantly reminded by our provider, Suburban Water, of the need to conserve it due to the drop by watering restrictions imposed by rising rates and by the new green or brown lawns and dying landscaping. How can this assurance be reasonably provided or accepted? With the potential to add 2,000 to 3,000 units based on information provided and using a conservative result, all services will be strained beyond capacity and present newer and larger financial burdens on the city and community. I see I'm running out of time, so I'll jump to my last comment. On behalf of my wife, Wendy, and I, we appreciate the time and the effort the Commission and the city staff are investing in this matter and respectfully request that no changes be made to the current ordinance. Understanding that state laws may be in flux, we further urge you to take a wait-and-see approach, but ultimately to dictate your decisions based on common sense, what is right and fair, and to ensure where state law is unclear or leaves discretion in your hands that you continue to work for our interest here in the community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Marietta Stallone.
Okay, so I don't really have to read all this because I said what he said. Okay. But I did want to just say a couple things that, you know, I was surprised after coming here and being part of this process in 2014 from this stage all the way to council, that last month's meeting, listening to the other speakers' point of view, I was really dismayed. I feel each of us has a right to our opinions and should be spoken to with respect. And there was no reason for people to behave in such a threatening manner. Also, for the record, I'd like to say that I've always found this committee to treat people fairly, and I do not believe they insulted any resident by offering a suggestion of a fair compromise. The rest of it really is, I do agree with my neighbor. We've talked about this many times. We've talked about it since 2014. His view is obstructed just like my view is obstructed from the same ADU that I told you affect 5 homes, the way it is on our little incline there. And I have empathy for any person that needs to care for a family member. Background about myself is I was raised with my grandmother, a chronically ill aunt, and a severely handicapped cousin. My 2 sisters and I squeezed into 1 bedroom to give more space for our family until we could move into another place and add on to the home. We would never have thought of building an ADU unattached to our home because we were assisting them. We needed to hear them and to see them to do that. And that's how my culture does it. So it's not as simple as some people think. Parking and street crowding would be noticed immediately, but the city needs to think about the long-term effects like Mr. Duncan spoke of. And most importantly, why so many of us chose to live here. Our privacy, our home, our surroundings. Think of the demands and the expense on our police, fire, schools, sewers, and more. The day of brown is the new green, how could anyone assume water would not suffer? I'm the one that's got a lot of the letters emailed to you for so many people that could not attend because they're actually home taking care of their elderly parents. So I hope you all consider to keep things exactly like we did at 2014, except for the small amendments you have to change, and let's just wait until the governor makes a decision, and this is wasting a lot of time and a lot of money. Remember that our commission is here to do the job, to think of the quality of life of the many in the community, not a few. Thank you all.
Thank you. Those are the only speaker cards I have on this item. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, so now that's not fair. All right, Marcel?
Okay, well, I've lived in Covina now, West Covina. I've been in the same house for 44 years, okay? I've been in this building on one other occasion, and that was when the incident came up that Dale was talking about. Somebody tried to put a glorified hut in the back of their lawn, and it was, you know, it would have definitely affected the neighborhood. Didn't make any sense. At that time, we all came in, and you people were nice enough to listen to us. It went to the council. I thought that the laws were literally changed at that time, I believe, to reflect what you're saying now with the setbacks and that type of thing. I don't know why we're even here. Why are we here? Isn't that the law? Why do we have to even be here? This doesn't make any sense to me. I would think in your positions, you want to make West Covina a better place. Isn't that the purpose of this? Certainly by creating another density issue in the city of West Covina, you're not going to improve anything. It's only going to get worse. We don't want to be a Los Angeles, for God's sake. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm not sure why we have to go through this again. That was only a few years ago. I didn't realize it was 4 years ago. Seems to me it was yesterday, but even so, it just doesn't make any sense that we're going through this again. Why don't you just tell these people, no, you can't do that? No? You're not answering me.
We're here listening right now.
I'd love
Thank
to get
you.
an answer out of somebody.
We can answer, but it's right now is your turn to speak to them.
Are they going to talk back or not?
There's not a conversation.
They're not going to give me an answer. Okay. Well, good luck to you all. This obviously seems crazy that we're even doing this.
Thank you, Marcel.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I think we're done with public testimony on this item. So I will close the public testimony portion and look to Jeff to provide some wise words of wisdom and answer the questions. Yes, thank you.
Wow, I didn't know it was going to be set up. So I think I'll just respond because it sounds like Marcel is not sure why we're here, but we've been here 4 times since then talking about the code because the state law keeps changing. The legislature and the governor signs things that we have to change because we have to follow state law. So this is the 3rd time that we've changed the rules since that time that you're talking about. And the last time we did, the council wanted us to look at these few issues, and that's why it came back to Planning Commission for us to look at these few issues and for the Planning Commission to give a recommendation so it can go to City Council next. And I would warn everyone that it does, although I don't think there's any this year, we thought there was one and it seems to have died in committee, legislative act, but it's likely there might be another one next year, or the same one might come back because the same people are putting these forth year after year. It's the same assemblymen and or state senators that are doing it. So I don't think they're going to go away in the next couple of years. So it'll likely be back again because they're likely to change the rules, which requires to change the rules again. So it's an ongoing thing because it's the area of state concern. Housing is an area of state concern. So I don't know if those are wise words, but they are words.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Any commissioner wishing to talk about this or provide direction?
I'll go. Well, you know, listening to the residents and responding to the emails and phone calls that I've gotten, I'm more comfortable than ever with the original position I took, which was to, like you said, it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, I think we've made a couple of changes, which we, you know, kind of had to do, but the overwhelming majority that we have heard from, and you know, you have to take a representative sampling, and they don't want to change it. You know, I mean, as was stated tonight, and in the past before that, and before that, people get up here and gave the reasons why they moved here to West Covina. And it is true, I think, as a commission, that we have a duty to listen to the residents and protect the neighborhoods. You know, that's, since I've been on here, that's been kind of what my little thing is. I mean, you got to protect the sanctity, especially of established neighborhoods. And, you don't want to start messing with things that don't need to be messed with. And in my view, this is one of those things that you don't need to mess with it. You look at, so it's either a standing ovation or nothing, okay? So I'm just going to sit. But, we've heard from people that, are concerned about, their view, and some people have a nicer view than other people have. But, to me, your house and your surroundings and your environment are your day-to-day life. And, you don't want to be looking at some god-awful building, even if your view is only of, it's not downtown LA and the beach. You have a vista that you would like to maintain as best you can. And, for somebody to be able to put up a building, within a few feet of your space, I think is wrong. So I feel, again, extremely comfortable with the position I've taken, and I'm going to stick with that position and go forward and, recommend that what we send to the council, that the council listens to what our recommendation is based on what we've heard from the residents, and do the right thing at their level also. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Redholz. Just out of consideration for those folks at home, if we could just hold our clapping to a minimum, please. Okay, any other commissioners wishing to comment? Commissioner Heng, I see you reaching for the microphone.
What I'd like to add is that, for a few years I've been sitting up here, the code has been changed constantly. And even as we speak today, there's new code is being in the process, and we have to listen and go through it and revise the city plan. And a lot of time, even though it seems like, okay, we have to look at the city as a whole, not just one area and what have you. And sometimes we do have to comply, not with only what the resident wants, because it may open us up into other issues that we may not want to get into. So to some extent, we do have to go through the process and also follow what was done by state law. We can massage it a little bit, but at the same time, we also have to conform. And I'm looking at overall as what the resident wants, and also as what to protect our city as well at the end of the day, because those are things that we need to do, because we do not want to open up things that we cannot take it back. And that's why we keep revisiting this code. And it must have been, since I've been sitting here, I don't know how many times, 4, 5 times now, that we have to keep revising and changing and talking. So I really appreciate everyone that come out here, so that we can, at the end of the day, we are all residents and we are all neighbors, and we need to hear that from all of that. And at the same time, like I said, I'm not only speaking for one particular area, it's the whole entire West Covina encompasses that we do need to follow and comply to some state regulations that we have to deal with as well. So, thank you.
Nothing. For me, just to add, codes, they're ever so organic at times. They grow, they morph, they adjust, and then that's just the way they're interpreted from a city perspective. But then when you have the state delivering certain state mandated requirements, and then the city trying to synthesize, well, how do you marry their direction with our code so that they're not thrown out in court? I think that's the hard work that staff undertake day to day. And for me, I see this as one of those crossroads, which I believe there may be other moments when maybe it's not us, it's not going to be this commission, but they're going to be undertaking similar discussions because of some change at the state level that we have to react to or address. I think the staff is trying to be proactive and trying to address some of the concerns. In my opinion, at least one of the 3 recommendations is one to try to correct the way the code is interpreted, at least the way I'm reading it. But the idea is trying to provide them the ability, the tools to try to do that. And I think that's the conflict, I think, in my brain in making the decision this evening that I have, because I want to make sure that they have the ability to, if need be, tweak the zoning code so that they can do their job better. And I think that's something that I always am considerate about staff and what they provide day to day. Understanding that we don't want to open the whole book on this because, yeah, the state staff may adjust the zoning code for some reason, but then the state is going to deliver a whole new set of requirements and we have to do this and start all over again. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but with the state, we just never know. We're always trying to tackle this whole issue with the need for affordable housing, alternative housing, so forth. And I think this is just staff's best attempt to try to clean up some of the language within the code. So I would like, at minimum, to give them that opportunity to clean up where we can clean up the zoning code and not make a whole package of changes that could put us in a different situation, a different West Covina, and make sure that we can try to preserve as much of our residential neighborhoods as best we can. So that's my thought process on this. I hope there is an opportunity to give staff that ability to make those necessary corrections or corrective measures so that you can fully implement the zoning code and there's no misunderstandings moving forward. So that's it for me. But Jeff, we look to you, see what we need to do.
Well, yes, there's a resolution here that would be a recommendation that would go to City Council, and that resolution would be 185964. And then we'd just be looking for a motion and second and vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the item.
I'll second it.
We do well?
Do we need a roll call? Yeah.
Commissioner Holtz?
Aye.
Commissioner Redholz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hing? Aye. Commissioner Castellanos?
Aye.
Chairman Jimenez?
Aye.
This, right now, we think this is going to go to the City Council on November 20th, I think. It's the third Tuesday in November. Those who have been notified will be notified again, and you can always contact me if you have questions.
Thank you. Okay, moving on our agenda, item number 4. Another code amendment. This is 18-03, a general exemption. The applicant is the City of West Covina. The request is a proposed code amendment that consists of potential amendments to the downtown plan and code parking standards, which are part of the West Covina Municipal Code. The downtown plan includes the Civic Center area, Cameron Avenue, Plaza West Covina, and Vincent Avenue, Glendora Avenue. The proposed code amendment is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15061B3. Staff, do we have a presentation? Or Jeff?
Yes, this is Code Amendment 1803. It is for downtown plan commercial parking standards. The downtown plan was adopted in December of 2016 with commercial parking standard rate of 0.65 of the standard municipal code calculation. Code Amendment 1702 recommended allowing 0.65 only for new development in compliance with the downtown standards. Other properties would continue to require parking at municipal code standards. The City Council initiated this code amendment on August 2nd, 2018 after review of Code Amendment 1702. They requested further review of the parking standards. The Planning Commission did hold a study session on September 11th. Standards for the downtown were considered in 2016 at 6 Planning Commission study sessions and 1 City Council study session. Planning Commission considered parking standards on April 26th and the City Council on June 13th, 2016. Issues considered at that time included the parking standards require provision of parking for uses on each property. Urban development is close together by definition, and patrons will likely visit more than one property during a visit. That's the park once concept. Nearby residents may also choose to walk for visits if they live close enough. Parking uses, structures, and surface parking separate uses and diminish the pedestrian experience and increase the cost of development to developers. So the first question that we had was the alternatives for parking requirements in the downtown code. At that study session, we went through these a lot more in depth. I just covered them briefly here. Option 1 was to do 80%. Option 2 was 75%. Option 3 was 65%, which is what the ratio is in the code right now. And then option 4 is no difference between parking standards for buildings in the downtown as opposed to the rest of the city. And option 5 would be 90% of the total required. We did have some discussion too about where those numbers came from. Reviewed that from the study sessions back in 2016. The Planning Commission selected option 3. This option allows for clear direction to the development community to design projects with a predictable number of parking spaces and recognizes that when uses are in close proximity, common facilities and joint use reductions, which are 2 things that are in the code for the rest of the city, should apply. And secondly, having predictable development standards is one of the most effective tools the city has to encourage new development. Question 2 was, should the parking standard in the downtown plan apply to new development in compliance with the downtown plan or to all properties in the downtown? This was the initial question that was asked at the previous code amendment. The Planning Commission directed staff to prepare a resolution for the 0.65 for new development in compliance with the downtown plan. Existing development would continue to be subject to the municipal code parking standards. The purpose for the parking reduction is to recognize that in a more intense urban environment, the following are important to consider. Patrons are more likely to park once and walk from one property to another. We find this already at the mall, which is kind of an urban development. It's not really because it's inward facing instead of outward facing, but it has the same parameters, and people do walk from Sears, which is one property, to Macy's, which is on a different property. Residents and workers are more likely to walk from one destination to another. Parking facilities, especially surface parking, divide uses and discourage pedestrian activity. And lastly, parking is very expensive to provide, especially underground or in structures. And so establishing parking standards that do not require excessive parking will reduce the cost of and encourage development. So finally, if the Planning Commission approves the code amendment, or recommends approval of the code amendment, it will be scheduled for a public hearing by the City Council, just the same as the last code amendment we just discussed. The code amendment is exempt from CEQA as specified on the screen and as discussed by the chairman, and staff is recommending the adoption of a resolution recommending approval of the code amendment to the City Council. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from the commission? None? Okay. Let's open this item, I guess, for public comment. Any members in the public audience wishing to speak on this item? Going once, going twice. Okay, let the record reflect. No public testimony, so we'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing, or of this item, I should say. Commission discussion? No takers? Fair enough. Okay.
Would you like a resolution?
Yes.
So the resolution number would be 18-5965.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do a roll call?
Yeah, roll call's fine.
Commissioner Holtz?
Stay consistent.
Commissioner Redholz?
Aye.
Commissioner Hing? Aye. Commissioner Castellanos?
Aye.
And Chairman Jimenez?
Aye. Okay, 5-0. So this concludes the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda. Moving on, non-hearing items, I see we have none. And this is continuation of oral communications. Anyone wishing to speak on items not agendized for this evening's? Okay. Let the record reflect, no additional comments. Commission reports, comments, and miscellaneous items. Jeff, do you have a planning director's, Commissioner Redholz, sorry?
I was just going to give my customary reminder to the vast viewing and listening audience that tomorrow night is the last and final and ultimate candidate forum for District Number 5, which has candidates Tony Wu and Frederick Sykes that will be sitting somewhere up here tomorrow. So that's the last one, and I would encourage all it starts at 6:30 for the meet and greet outside in the community room, and then the actual forum begins at 7 o'clock. And of course, I would encourage the residents and voters from District 5 to attend, and actually from the entire city, since decisions made on the council will still affect the entire city, even though it's district voting. So tomorrow night's the last one, so before the election, so let's be here and ask questions and hear what they have to say and make good decisions at the voting booth. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that update, Commissioner Redholz. Okay, I think we're going to move over to Planning Director's report.
Yes, so we have 2 items. The forthcoming on there, we do have a hearing item for the 23rd, and we're going to have one other item that we just continued tonight. So we will have a meeting on the 23rd, and then project status reports there for projects that the City Council, the Planning Commission has approved, and where they're at in the process.
I do have a question. Sure. This is Riro's Burritos. Are they starting all over again? Is that what they're?
Well, their approval expired. So that, yes, they're coming back. They have to start again. In a manner of speaking, they have to start again. Obviously, when you start again, it doesn't take near as long because it's pretty much the same thing. We have to go through it again because it expired.
Okay. And they had how many times? 2, or there were how many extensions? 2?
I'm not sure I don't think they ever applied for an extension. That was probably the issue.
Oh, they never applied for an extension?
Yeah, I believe that might have been the case. I don't recall.
I don't remember ever seeing that. You're right, yeah. Okay.
They didn't exhaust all those extensions that some people do.
Okay. Any city council actions, Jeff?
We got up the appeal.
There was an appeal. What was the appeal on? The Pacific Lane, yes, thank you. Somebody remembers. So that was on last week. The Planning Commission heard this in June. So there was a long gap, and it was because the appellant and the applicant were both traveling, and so they had to find a time when they were both together, and that ended up being October 2nd. So that's why it took long, but council did approve that. I remember it was 4-1. It was 4-1 vote. So council did approve that, and apparently that project will move forward now.
Okay. No additional comments. We can adjourn. The time is 8:31. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. Have a good night.